Ambassador Choi Hyeri walked through the halls of the Galactic Council building. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light. Everything was beautiful and peaceful. It was designed to make visitors feel small and impressed, but Hyeri was not impressed. She had been a diplomat too long to be fooled by pretty buildings. Something was wrong here. The aliens who greeted her were too polite, too careful with their words. They smiled, but their eyes were cold. "Ambassador Choi," said the council speaker, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. "Welcome to your first full council session. Today we will discuss humanity's place in our galactic community." Hyeri sat in the chair marked for her. It was smaller than the other chairs, placed lower than the others. Another small insult, but she ignored it. She had bigger things to worry about. The speaker activated a hologram in the center of the room. It showed a red file with symbols that hurt to look at. Hyeri had never seen anything like it before. "Council members," the speaker said, "today we implement Classification Crimson for the first time in our history." Murmurs went around the room. Even the alien council members seemed surprised. Hyeri felt her heart start to beat faster. Classification Crimson is reserved for species that pose an existential threat to galactic stability, species that show rapid advancement, unified response to threats, and the ability to exceed all projected limitations. The hologram changed to show Earth. Then it showed human colonies, human ships, human cities, all marked with red symbols. Species 7731, known to themselves as humans, has been designated Category Crimson. This classification requires immediate implementation of the Crimson protocols. Hyeri stood up. "Wait, you are talking about my people. Do we not get to defend ourselves? Do we not get to explain?" The speaker looked at her with something like pity. "Ambassador, this is not a trial. This is a classification based on observed behavior. Your species has already demonstrated the characteristics that make them dangerous." "What characteristics?" Hyeri demanded. Another alien, this one covered in scales, activated a new display. "Your species achieves technological advancement at rates that exceed all known models. You have gone from ground-based transportation to interstellar travel in less than 100 years. That makes us curious, not dangerous. Your species unifies against external threats with unprecedented efficiency. Our models show that when faced with existential crisis, humans abandon all internal conflicts and focus entirely on the external threat. That makes us cooperative, not dangerous. Your species adapts to impossible situations and finds solutions that other species cannot imagine. You survive in environments that should kill you. You win wars you should lose." Hyeri felt a chill run down her spine. "You are afraid of us because we do not give up." "Yes," the speaker said simply. "That is exactly why we are afraid of you." The display changed again. This time it showed a timeline. Phase 1, isolation. Phase 2, observation. Phase 3 was marked with symbols that made Hyeri feel sick. "The Crimson protocols are already in effect," the speaker continued. "Phase 1 began this morning. All human vessels are being redirected to designated safe zones. All human colonies outside the Sol system are being evacuated. You cannot do this," Hyeri said. "We have done nothing wrong." "You exist," said the scaled alien. "That is enough." Meanwhile on Earth, Kim Daeho was very busy. Messages were coming in from across human space. The aliens were moving fast, but not fast enough. Humanity had been preparing for this for decades. Daeho sat in a control room filled with screens and computers. Each screen showed a different human colony, a different ship, a different operation. Most people thought there were 12 human colonies outside the Sol system. The aliens thought there were 15. There were actually 47. "Sir," said one of the technicians, "Colony 7 is reporting alien ships approaching. Tell them to execute Protocol Ghost." Daeho replied, "Colony 12 is asking for evacuation support. Tell them to execute Protocol Ghost." "Sir, Colony 23 says the aliens found their main settlement. Tell them to execute Protocol Ghost." The technician looked confused. "Sir, what about the people?" Daeho smiled. "What people?" Across human space, something very strange was happening. When alien enforcement fleets arrived at human colonies, they found empty settlements. No people, no ships, no sign of where anyone had gone. But the settlements were not abandoned. They were clean, organized, and recently used. More strangely, the aliens found equipment they did not recognize. Devices that looked like sensors but more advanced than anything humans were supposed to have. communication equipment that used technologies the aliens had never seen. On Colony 7, Captain Han Soo-young watched from her hidden observation post as alien ships landed in the empty settlement below. Her people had evacuated 6 hours ago, disappearing into caves and underground tunnels that the aliens did not know existed. "Are they taking the bait?" asked her second-in-command. "Look at them," Soo-young said, pointing at the aliens exploring the empty buildings. "They think they are clever. They think they caught us by surprise." The aliens were being very careful, checking each building for traps or hidden dangers. What they did not notice were the tiny sensors recording everything they did. They did not notice the communication devices uploading their ship specifications to hidden networks. They did not notice that they were being studied just as carefully as they had studied humans. "Should we contact Earth Command?" asked the second-in-command. "Earth Command already knows everything we know," Soo-young replied. "That is the point of the network." Back on Earth, Yoon Minji worked in a laboratory that officially did not exist. She was a quantum physicist, but her real job was creating impossible things. For 20 years, she had been developing technology based on theories that other species thought were impossible. The message from Daeho was simple. Phase 1 initiated. Release the products. Minji smiled as she activated systems that had been waiting for this moment. Across human space, technology that aliens thought was impossible began to work. Ships that could disappear from sensors, communication networks that could not be detected, weapons that could strike targets from impossible distances. But the most important technology was not a weapon. It was information. For 50 years, humanity had been building a network that connected every human settlement, every ship, every outpost. When the aliens moved against one human colony, every other human settlement knew about it instantly. The aliens thought they were hunting scattered groups of primitive humans. What they were actually facing was a single connected organism that spanned dozens of star systems. In the underground facility on Earth, Bei Taiwan received his orders. He was the leader of what the government called deep reconnaissance. What that really meant was that he ran colonies so secret that even most humans did not know about them. "Taiwan," said Daeho over the secure channel, "it is time to wake up the sleepers." Taiwan had been waiting for this order for 15 years. Scattered across the galaxy were human settlements disguised as alien colonies, trading posts, research stations, and mining operations. Humans who had been living among aliens for decades, learning their secrets, mapping their weaknesses. "All units," Taiwan broadcast on the most secure channel humanity possessed. "This is Deep 6. Crimson Dawn is active." Repeat, Crimson Dawn is active. Across the galaxy, humans who had been pretending to be something else began to shed their disguises. Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Hieri was asking questions that made the aliens uncomfortable. "How long have you been watching us?" "That is not relevant," the speaker replied. "How many other species have you classified as crimson?" "You are the first." "How many species have you eliminated using these protocols?" The speaker's silence was answer enough. "You have done this before," Hieri realized. "Not crimson, but other classifications. You have destroyed entire species because you were afraid of them." "We maintain galactic stability," the scaled alien said defensively. "You maintain your power," Hieri replied. "And now you think humanity threatens that power." She looked around the chamber at the alien faces. Some looked guilty. Others looked angry. All of them looked afraid. "You are right to be afraid," she said quietly. "Not because we are dangerous to innocents, but because we do not accept that anyone has the right to decide who lives and who dies." The speaker activated another display. "Phase 2 will begin in 72 hours. We suggest you use that time to prepare your people for what comes next." But as Hieri left the council chamber, she was not worried about preparing her people. Her people had been preparing for this for longer than the aliens knew. The only question now was whether the aliens would realize their mistake before it was too late. Kang Minho stared at the blue screen in front of him. The alien text made his eyes hurt, but he had learned to read it after 3 years working on Harmony 7. The space station was huge, floating between stars like a metal city. Aliens from 20 different worlds worked here. They studied new species and decided if they were safe or dangerous. Minho was the only human on the station. The aliens thought he was useful because humans were new to space. They wanted to learn about his people. What they did not know was that Minho was learning about them too. The message on his screen was marked with red symbols. Red meant very important. Red meant secret. Minho looked around the lab. The other scientists were busy with their own work. None of them were watching him. He opened the message. The words made his blood turn cold. Species classification update species. 17731. Category Crimson, immediate implementation. Minho knew that species 7731 was the code name for humans. But category Crimson?
He had never heard of that before.
In 3 years of working here, he had only seen 3 categories. Green meant safe. Yellow meant watch carefully. Red meant dangerous but manageable. What was Crimson? Minho copied the file to a hidden drive. His hands shook as he worked. If the aliens caught him stealing classified information, they would kill him. But he had to know what this meant. The file was huge. It contained reports from hundreds of alien observers who had been watching Earth for decades. Minho felt sick as he read. The aliens knew everything. They knew about human wars, about their technology, about their cities and their armies. They had been studying humans like bugs under a microscope. But the worst part was the classification itself. Minho found the definition buried deep in the files. Category Crimson. Reserved for species demonstrating unprecedented adaptive capability, rapid technological advancement, and potential for unified species mobilization under existential threat. Warning: no previous species has qualified for this classification. Protocols are theoretical and untested. Minho read the words 3 times. The aliens were not just worried about humans. They were terrified. The file contained a 3-phase plan. Phase 1 was isolation. Cut off all human space travel. Stop them from spreading to new worlds. Phase 2 was observation. Watch them carefully and wait for them to weaken. Phase 3 made Minho's stomach turn. Complete elimination of the species. But there was something else in the files that confused him. The reports from the alien watchers were old. Some were from 50 years ago. Some were from last month. But the newest report seemed worried. The watchers were finding things they could not explain. Human colonies that should not exist. Ships that appeared and disappeared without warning. Technology that was too advanced for such a young species. The aliens who were supposed to be watching humans were starting to think that maybe humans were watching them back. Minho closed the file and put the drive in his pocket. He had to warn Earth. But how could he send a message without the aliens knowing? Across the galaxy, Lee Sujin sat in the captain's chair of the exploration ship Morning Star. She was young for a captain, only 32, but she was good at her job. The Morning Star was exploring a new star system looking for planets that humans could live on. Captain, called her navigator. We have company. Sujin looked at the main screen. 3 alien ships were coming toward them. They were big and covered with weapons. But they were not attacking. They were just following. Open a channel, Sujin said. The alien captain appeared on the screen. He looked like a giant lizard with too many teeth. When he spoke, the computer translated his words. Human vessel, you will follow us. Your exploration in this sector is no longer permitted. Sujin felt her anger rise. This is free space. We have done nothing wrong. New regulations have been implemented. All human vessels must return to designated areas immediately. What regulations? We were never told about any regulations. The alien captain's eyes went cold. You are being told now. Follow us or we will make you follow us. Sujin knew that 3 alien warships could destroy her exploration vessel easily. But something felt wrong about this. Why were the aliens suddenly so interested in stopping human exploration? We will comply, she said. But as soon as the channel closed, she turned to her communications officer. Send a coded message to Earth Command. Tell them what just happened. Use the emergency frequency. On Earth, Park Ji-ho sat in a room that did not exist on any official map. The room was deep underground, hidden beneath the capital city. Only a few dozen people knew about this place. It was the headquarters of humanity's most secret organization. Ji-ho was not a tall man, but when he spoke, people listened. He had been preparing for this day for 20 years. The day when aliens would decide that humans were too dangerous to live. The messages were coming in from across human space. Exploration ships being turned back. Trade routes being closed. Human diplomats being asked to leave alien worlds. To most people, it would look like a series of unrelated problems. But Ji-ho knew better. His assistant, a young woman named Kim Dae-ho, brought him the latest reports. Sir, It is starting, she said. Jiho nodded. Contact all the deep stations. Tell them to go to Alert Status 1 and send a message to Ambassador Choi Hyeri. Tell her to be very careful. The aliens are going to invite her to a special meeting soon. How do you know that, sir? Jiho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Because we have been planning for this day for 50 years. We knew this would happen eventually. Humans grow too fast, learn too quickly, spread too far. We are everything the aliens fear in a species. Are we really that dangerous? That depends on what you mean by dangerous, Jiho said. Are we dangerous to innocent people? No, are we dangerous to anyone who tries to wipe us out? His smile grew wider. Oh yes, very dangerous indeed. Across the galaxy, in a place where no human was supposed to be, Ambassador Choi Hyeri received an invitation that would change everything. The Galactic Council wanted to meet with her. They said it was time for humanity to take its place in galactic society. But Hyeri had been a diplomat for 15 years. She knew the difference between an invitation and a trap. This invitation felt like a trap. What she did not know was that humanity had been preparing for this trap for longer than she had been alive. The Galactic Council's war room was filled with tension. Admiral Vorthak, commander of the Council's enforcement fleet, stared at the reports on his screen with growing confusion and anger. This is impossible, he said to his staff. We have sent fleets to 12 human colonies. Every single one was empty when we arrived. His intelligence officer, a thin alien with gray skin, looked nervous. Sir, the colonies were not just empty. They were prepared, as if the humans knew we were coming. That is impossible, Vorthak repeated. Our operation was planned in complete secrecy. Only the highest levels of the Council knew about Phase 1. But even as he said it, Vorthak felt doubt creeping into his mind. The evidence was right in front of him. Somehow the humans had known. Not only had they known, but they had been ready. Sir, said another officer, we are receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. They have detected unusual energy signatures in sectors that should be empty. Vorthak pulled up the sensor data. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Energy signatures that looked like human ships, but in places where no human ships should be, moving in patterns that suggested coordination across impossible distances. How many ships? He asked. Unknown, sir. The signatures appear and disappear randomly. Our sensors cannot get a clear count. On the bridge of the human warship Indomitable, Captain Han Soo-young watched the alien fleet approach Colony 15. Like all the other colonies, it appeared empty and abandoned. But appearances could be very deceiving. Status report, she said to her crew. All systems green, Captain, replied her weapons officer. Oh, Minjae. Stealth field is holding steady. The aliens cannot see us. Good. Are our friends in position? Yes, Captain. Ships 2 through 7 are holding position around the colony. Ships 8 through 12 are positioned along the alien fleet's escape route. Soo-young smiled. The aliens thought they were investigating an abandoned human settlement. What they were actually doing was walking into the most sophisticated trap humanity had ever built. Sir, said her sensor officer, Limnari, the alien fleet is beginning their landing sequence. Let them land, Soo-young said. Let them get comfortable. The alien ships landed in the empty colony just as they had done 11 times before. Alien soldiers spread out through the settlement, checking buildings and looking for clues about where the humans had gone. What they found instead were devices they had never seen before, advanced computers running programs they could not understand, communication equipment that seemed to be active, but they could not figure out what it was communicating with. Captain, said Minjae. The aliens are accessing the computers we left for them. Perfect, Soo-young replied. Are they downloading the files? Yes, Captain. They think they are stealing our intelligence data. And what are they actually downloading? A complete map of their own fleet positions, their communication codes, and a very nasty computer virus. Soo-young's smile grew wider. The aliens thought they were hunting humans. They did not realize that they were being hunted themselves. Back on Earth, Park Ji-ho stood in the command center watching dozens of screens show alien fleets across the galaxy. Each fleet thought it was conducting an independent operation. None of them knew that their every move was being watched, recorded, and analyzed. Sir, said Kim Dae-ho, all fleets have taken the bait. They are downloading the intelligence packages we left for them. Good. What about our deep assets? Sleeper agents in 17 different alien governments are now active. They are feeding us real-time information about Council military planning. Jiho nodded. For 50 years, humanity had been playing a very long game. While the aliens were watching human colonies and counting human ships, humans had been infiltrating alien society at every level. "Sir," said another officer, "we are receiving a priority message from Admiral Zhang Wubin." Jiho's eyebrows rose. Admiral Wubin commanded humanity's secret fleet, the ships that officially did not exist. If Wubin was breaking communication silence, something important was happening. The message was short. Council forces are moving to Phase 2 ahead of schedule. Request permission to reveal true fleet strength. Jiho thought for a moment. Phase 2 meant active military operations against human settlements. It meant the aliens had given up on containment and were moving to direct attacks. "Send reply," he said. "Permission granted. Show them what we really have." Across the galaxy, Admiral Vorthak was becoming increasingly frustrated. 12 human colonies investigated and still no humans found. But worse than that, his ships were starting to report technical problems. "Sir," said his communications officer, "Fleet 7 is reporting system malfunctions. Their computers are showing errors they cannot fix." "What kind of errors?" "Their navigation systems think they are in the wrong location. Their weapons are targeting their own ships. Their communication systems are sending messages they did not authorize." Before Vorthak could respond, similar reports started coming in from other fleets. Computer viruses were spreading through the Council's enforcement ships, turning their own systems against them. "Sir," said the intelligence officer, his voice shaking, "I think the humans planned this. The computers we found in their colonies were not abandoned. They were traps." Vorthak felt a chill of fear. "Are you telling me that a species we classified as primitive has been manipulating our operations from the beginning?" "Sir, I think they have been manipulating us for much longer than that." At that moment, Vorthak's sensors detected something that should have been impossible. Ships were appearing on his screens. Dozens of ships. Human ships. But they were not the small exploration vessels and colony ships that the Council had been tracking. These were warships. Large, advanced, heavily armed warships that appeared to use technology the Council had never seen before. "Where did they come from?" Vorthak demanded. "Unknown, sir. They just appeared. Our sensors show no trace of how they arrived." Admiral Zhang Wubin sat in the command chair of humanity's flagship, the Indomitable Spirit. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. They had been training for this moment for 20 years. "Admiral," said his tactical officer Shin Yuna, "all ships are in position. Alien fleets in 12 sectors are now surrounded." "Good. Open a channel to all alien commanders." Across the galaxy, alien fleet commanders received the same message at the same time. The face of a human admiral appeared on their screens, calm and confident. "I am Admiral Zhang Wubin of the Human Defense Force. Your fleets are now surrounded by superior forces. You have two choices. Withdraw immediately to your home territories, or face the consequences of continuing your aggressive actions against human settlements." Admiral Vorthak stared at the human face on his screen. "This is impossible." "Our intelligence reports show that humans have only a few dozen ships." "Your intelligence reports show what we wanted them to show," Wubin replied, "just as your surveillance of our colonies showed what we wanted you to see. Did you really think that a species advanced enough for interstellar travel would be too primitive to detect your observers?" The truth hit Vorthak like a physical blow. "You have been watching us watch you." "For over 50 years, Wubin confirmed. "We knew this day would come. We knew that eventually, the Council would decide we were too dangerous to be allowed to exist. So we prepared. How many ships do you have?" Vorthak asked. "Enough," Wubin replied. "The question is not how many ships we have. The question is what we plan to do with them." On screens across the galaxy, human ships began to move. Not toward the alien fleets, but toward other targets. Toward planets that the Council had classified and eliminated in the past. Toward secret facilities where other species were being studied and judged. Quan Hyunwoo led a team of human special forces toward a Council research station that officially did not exist. His mission was to liberate the aliens who were imprisoned there, species that had been classified as potentially dangerous and removed from their home worlds. "Remember," he told his team as their ship approached the station, "we are not here to destroy. We are here to free." The station's defenses were strong, but they were designed to keep people in, not to keep attackers out. Hyunwoo's team moved through the facility like ghosts. disabling security systems and opening prison cells. What they found inside horrified them. Dozens of different species locked in cages being studied like laboratory animals. Some had been there for decades. "Who are you?" asked one of the prisoners, a creature with feathers and 4 eyes. "We are humans," Hyunwoo replied, "and we are here to take you home." Back in the council war room, the situation was rapidly spiraling out of control. Human forces were not just defending themselves. They were actively attacking council facilities across the galaxy. "Sir," reported an officer, "they have hit 17 research stations, 12 observation posts, and 4 classified detention facilities. What do they want?" Vortak demanded. His answer came from Gojun, a human philosopher who appeared on every council communication channel at the same time. "People of the galaxy," she said, "for too long the Galactic Council has appointed itself the judge of which species deserve to exist. They have destroyed civilizations, imprisoned innocents, and ruled through fear." Her image was being broadcast to every world in council space. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives from dozens of worlds shouted at each other in languages that the translation computers could barely keep up with. Some demanded immediate military action against the humans. Others called for negotiations. A few quietly suggested that maybe the humans had a point. Council Speaker Xanthus struck his staff against the floor repeatedly, trying to restore order. His blue skin had turned a darker shade, a sign of extreme stress among his people. "Order. We must have order," he shouted, but there was no order to be found. In less than 72 hours, the humans had turned the galaxy upside down. Military bases were under siege. Research stations had been emptied of their prisoners. Most shocking of all, other species were beginning to join the humans. "The situation is simple," announced Admiral Vortak as he entered the chamber. His uniform was torn and he looked like he had not slept in days. "We are losing, not just battles but entire systems. The humans are not fighting a war of conquest. They are fighting a war of liberation." Representative Korthek, whose people had served the council for over 1,000 years, stood up slowly. "Admiral, please explain how a species we classified as primitive has defeated our fleets." "They were never primitive," Vortak replied bitterly. "That was our first mistake. Our observers reported what the humans wanted them to see. While we were watching their colonies and counting their ships, they were studying us, learning our weaknesses, planning for this exact situation." He activated a holographic display showing human fleet movements across the galaxy. "Look at this coordination. This level of strategic planning takes decades to achieve. They have been preparing for this war since before we started watching them." On the flagship Indomitable Spirit, Admiral Jong Woo-bin reviewed the latest battle reports with his senior staff. The war was going better than even the most optimistic projections had predicted. "Status report," he said to his tactical officer. "Sir," replied Shin Yuna, "we have successfully liberated 43 council detention facilities. Over 200 different species have been freed from captivity. Casualties, minimal on our side. We are avoiding unnecessary killing. Most council forces surrender when they realize they cannot win." Woo-bin nodded approvingly. "Good. What about fleet actions?" "Council forces have retreated from all contested systems. They are falling back to core worlds and fortified positions. And our new allies?" Yuna smiled. "Growing every day, sir. 17 species have officially joined our coalition. Dozens more are providing intelligence and support." This was the part of the plan that even Woo-bin had not fully expected. Humanity had hoped that other species would support them, but the response had been overwhelming. Entire civilizations that had lived in fear of council classification were openly rebelling. On the planet Koresh, Nam Ji-hoon stood before a gathering of representatives from 30 different species. He had never wanted to be a leader, but circumstances had thrust him into a position he could not refuse. "My friends," he said, his words being translated into dozens of languages, "we stand at a turning point in galactic history. For too long we have allowed fear to rule our choices. Fear of being classified, fear of being judged, fear of being eliminated." The crowd listened in absolute silence. Many of these beings had never seen a human before, but they had all heard the stories, the species that had defied the council and lived. "Today we choose a different path. Today we choose freedom." The applause that followed could be heard across the city, but not everyone was celebrating. In the depths of space, Council Admiral Zefrak commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. Over 1,000 ships armed with weapons that could destroy entire worlds. The Council's final gamble. "Admiral," said his aide, "we are approaching the Sol system. Earth's defenses are detecting us." "Good," Zefrak replied. "Open a channel to the planet." The face that appeared on his screen was familiar. Park Jiho, the human military strategist who had somehow orchestrated the galaxy's greatest military upset. "Admiral Zefrak," Jiho said calmly, "I have been expecting you. This ends now, human. Surrender immediately, or we will implement Phase 3 of the Crimson Protocols." "Complete species elimination," Jiho said. "Yes, I read your files. Tell me, Admiral, how many other species have you eliminated using those protocols?" Zefrak's silence was answer enough. "I thought so," Jiho continued. "Do you know why you are here, Admiral? It is not to end the war. It is to end the truth. You cannot afford to let other species know how many civilizations you have destroyed. You know nothing of galactic stability," Zefrak snarled. "I know plenty about tyranny disguised as stability," Jiho replied. "The question is, are you prepared for what happens next?" Before Zefrak could ask what he meant, his sensors began detecting energy signatures throughout the Sol system. Ships were appearing from behind planets, from asteroid fields, from seemingly empty space. Not dozens of ships. Not hundreds, thousands. "This is impossible," breathed his tactical officer. "Our intelligence said they had maybe 200 ships total." Jiho smiled. "Your intelligence was based on what we allowed you to see. Admiral, you are looking at the combined fleets of 47 different species. Every civilization that ever lived in fear of Council judgment. Every species that ever wondered if they would be next. The truth was even more staggering than the numbers suggested. The humans had not just been preparing for their own defense. They had been secretly organizing a galactic alliance for decades. On one of the approaching ships, Captain Quan Hyun-woo addressed his crew. They were not all human. In fact, humans were the minority. His tactical officer was one of the feathered beings they had rescued from a council prison. His engineer was a crystalline creature whose people had been classified as too dangerous 50 years ago. "All units," he broadcast to the fleet, "remember our mission. We are not here to destroy the council fleet. We are here to give them a choice." Admiral Zefrak found himself surrounded by the largest military force in recorded galactic history. Ships from dozens of species, all united under human leadership. The impossibility of it made his mind reel. "What do you want?" he asked Jiho. "Surrender," Jiho replied simply. "Immediate and unconditional surrender of all council forces. Dissolution of the classification system. Release of all classified species. And trials for those responsible for species elimination. And if we refuse?" Jiho's expression grew cold. "Then you will discover why we were classified as Category Crimson." As if summoned by his words, new contacts appeared on Zefrak's sensors. Ships unlike anything in Council databases. Human ships, but built with technologies that seemed impossible. "Admiral," his weapons officer reported, "those ships are generating energy readings that exceed our measuring capabilities." "What kind of weapons are they carrying?" "Unknown, sir. Our scanners cannot penetrate their hulls." The truth was that the humans had not spent 50 years just preparing for war. They had spent 50 years advancing their technology in complete secrecy. While the Council believed human science was decades behind galactic standards, human scientists had actually leapt ahead. Dr. Yoon Minji had called it impossible physics made possible, weapons that could disable ships without destroying them, shields that could deflect any known weapon, engines that could move ships faster than anyone thought possible. "You have 1 hour to decide," Jiho told Zefrak. "Surrender and face justice, or continue fighting and face annihilation." The channel closed, leaving Zefrak alone with his thoughts and his fleet. Around him, 1,000 of the galaxy's most powerful warships waited for his orders. But facing them were ships and beings that had just rewritten the rules of galactic warfare. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Zefrak understood what it meant to be outmatched. On Earth, in the hidden command center, Kim Diho monitored communications across the galaxy. The war had reached its turning point. Other Council fleets were surrendering or retreating. Entire sectors were declaring independence from Council rule. "Sir," she reported to Park Jiho, "we are receiving surrender requests from Council forces in 12 sectors. They are asking for terms." "Standard terms," Jiho replied. "Immediate withdrawal to home territories, no retaliation against species that joined our coalition, cooperation with the war crimes investigations. And if they refuse? Jiho looked at the screens showing the massive fleet surrounding Admiral Zephrak's forces. Ships crewed by dozens of different species, all united by a common cause, freedom from the fear of classification and elimination. They will not refuse, he said quietly. They cannot refuse. Because for the first time in their history, they are the ones who are outnumbered and outgunned. The age of council dominance was ending. The age of galactic freedom was about to begin. 6 months after the end of the Council War, Nam Ji-hoon stood in what used to be the Galactic Council Chamber. The crystal walls still glowed with soft light, but everything else had changed. Instead of elevated seats arranged to make visitors feel small, there were simple tables arranged in a circle. Representatives from over 100 different species sat as equals. Ji-hoon had never wanted to be called an emperor, but somehow the title had stuck. The liberated species insisted on having a leader, and they had chosen him. He tried to make it clear that his power was temporary, but for now, the galaxy needed someone to help organize the transition to freedom. The tribunal has reached its verdict, announced Ryu Seoyeon, who served as the chief prosecutor for the war crimes trials. Her voice echoed through the chamber as she read from a long list of charges. Former Council Speaker Xanthus, guilty of authorizing species elimination. Former Admiral Vorthak, guilty of conducting military operations against classified species. Former Admiral Zephrak, guilty of attempting to implement Phase 3 protocols. The sentences were not death. Humanity had insisted on that. Instead, the guilty parties would spend their lives helping to rebuild the civilizations they had destroyed. What about the classification system itself? Asked Representative Gorvex, whose people had been living in hiding for 200 years, afraid of being discovered and classified. Completely abolished, replied Dr. Moon Yuri, humanities expert on interspecies relations. No species has the right to judge another species' right to exist. That principle is now the foundation of galactic law. But the real work was happening outside the chamber, across the galaxy. Ships carrying volunteers from dozens of species were visiting worlds that had been empty for centuries, worlds where entire civilizations had been eliminated by council forces. An Gunwoo commanded one of these restoration fleets. His job was to help rebuild destroyed worlds and resettle species that had been driven from their homes. It was slow work, but important work. "Captain," reported his science officer, "we have found evidence of the Cathera civilization on this world." "How long since they were eliminated?" "Records show 300 years, sir." Gunwoo nodded sadly. The Cathera had been classified as dangerous because they developed faster than light communication. The Council had been afraid that instant communication across the galaxy would make their rule impossible to maintain. They had been right. "Begin restoration protocols," Gunwoo ordered, "and send a message to the Cathara survivors in the refugee fleet. Tell them they can come home." On Earth, in the facility that was no longer secret, Park Ji-ho worked on the most important project of his life. The Galactic Charter, a document that would govern relationships between species for centuries to come. The basic principles were simple. No species could claim authority over another. No species could be classified or judged by outsiders. All beings had the right to exist and develop according to their own nature. But turning those principles into practical law was incredibly complex. The Vrex representatives are concerned about defense, reported Kim Daeho. They want to know what happens if a species becomes genuinely dangerous. Show them the human model, Jiho replied. The human model was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of preventing dangerous development, the galaxy would contain it. Species that developed weapons of mass destruction would find themselves surrounded by defensive systems operated jointly by all other species. Not to eliminate them, but to protect everyone else. What about the Zephyrians? They are asking about trade disputes. Arbitration panels with representatives from neutral species. The Maleri want to know about territorial disputes. The same system. Neutral arbitration. Every problem had a solution that did not involve elimination or domination. It was the opposite of everything the Council had represented. Ambassador Choi Hyeri, now serving as humanity's chief diplomat to the new galactic government, met with representatives from the former Council species. Many of them were still struggling to accept the new reality. "You could have destroyed us," said former Speaker Xanthus. who was now serving as a historical advisor to help prevent future abuses of power. "Why did you not?" "Because that would have made us no different from you," Yeri replied. "The goal was never to replace one tyranny with another. The goal was to end tyranny entirely. But how do you maintain order without authority? You maintain order through cooperation, through mutual benefit, through the understanding that everyone is safer when everyone is free." It was a hard concept for species that had lived under council rule for millennia to understand, but slowly it was taking hold. The real test came when a new species was discovered. The Zenthari were a young civilization that had just achieved interstellar flight. Under the old system, they would have been immediately classified and either welcomed or eliminated based on council judgment. Under the new system, Captain Lee Sujin's ship, now called the Ambassador of Hope, made first contact. "Greetings," she said to the Zenthari captain who appeared on her screen. "I am Captain Sujin of the Galactic Federation. We welcome you to the community of star-traveling species." The Zenthari captain looked nervous. "What are your intentions toward our people?" "To offer friendship, trade, and mutual cooperation. Nothing more." "You do not wish to study us? To judge if we are worthy?" "We wish to know you as equals," Sujin replied. "Your worth is not for us to judge. Your future is for you to decide." It was the first contact in galactic history conducted as a meeting between equals. Back on the former council homeworld, now renamed Freedom Station, Nam Jihun prepared for the ceremony that would mark the end of his emergency powers. In 1 year, there would be elections for the leadership of the Galactic Federation. Leaders chosen by the people they served, not appointed by those who claimed authority. "Are you ready to give up being emperor?" asked Dr. Yuri, who had become one of his closest advisors. "I was never emperor," Jihun replied. "I was just someone who helped organize the transition to freedom." "The history books will remember you differently. Let them. What matters is not how history remembers us, but what kind of future we create." The ceremony was simple. Jihun stood before the representatives of over 100 species and formally dissolved the emergency government that had been created during the war. "Today marks the end of the age of classification," he said. "No longer will any species live in fear of being judged by others. No longer will any civilization face elimination, because they developed too quickly or grew too strong." He paused and looked around the chamber at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. "We stand at the beginning of a new age, an age where diversity is celebrated, not feared, an age where cooperation replaces domination, an age where every species has the right to reach for the stars." The applause that followed was not just for him, but for the idea itself. The idea that freedom was possible. In the months that followed, something remarkable happened. Without the fear of classification, species began to develop faster than ever before. New technologies, new art, new ways of thinking emerged from civilizations that had been hiding their potential for centuries. The galaxy became a more dangerous place in some ways. There were more weapons, more powerful ships, more advanced technologies. But it also became safer, because no one had to hide what they were or fear judgment for what they might become. And at the center of it all, humanity continued to do what had made them Category Crimson in the first place. They adapted, they learned, they grew, and they helped others do the same. The final entry in the classified files of the former Galactic Council was written by a human historian. Category Crimson was created to identify species that posed an existential threat to galactic stability. Humanity was designated Category Crimson because of their rapid development, their unity in the face of threats, and their refusal to accept limitations. The Council was correct in their assessment. Humanity did pose an existential threat to galactic stability, but they were wrong about what that meant. Humanity did not threaten the galaxy. They threatened the system that kept the galaxy in chains. Category Crimson was never about danger to civilization. It was about danger to those who would control civilization. And in that sense, may there always be more Category Crimson species in our galaxy. The Age of Freedom had begun, and it had begun because one species refused to accept that anyone had the right to judge who deserved to exist. In the end, Category Crimson had not been a designation of danger. It had been a designation of hope.